So this wonderful lady, I want to embarrass for a moment because she won the Foreign Press Association Award, the White House Correspondents Association Scholarship, the Women International Leadership Fellow. She is an amazing journalist with Reuters, Germany. She focuses on energy and climate and studying Columbia, Damascus University. Amazing. Thank you for being here, Stage 2. It's your first time?
Yes. Hi.
Okay. These are the smartest, the bestest startups from across Europe, 40 universities represented in the house.
Yeah.
They're really fun, good group of people, and we're talking about something very important to you and to me.
Yeah.
I was on your Twitter account yesterday, and I saw you put up a poll about the global concern for climate change, and shockingly, it's going down. We are less concerned about climate than before. How?
Well, first we have to say the results of the survey, which is the latest survey we have right now about climate awareness, was based on 2021. So first before the heat wave, before the Pakistan floods, but also during COVID. So COVID became the biggest concern. The livelihoods of people getting out of jobs was the biggest concern for many people around the world during that pandemic. I'm hoping we'll get better numbers this year, but these are partly the reasons for that.
Of all the different topics that we could have talked about on the panel, and we will have other panels over the next few days, we thought we'd kick it off with this one on sustainability. So can we please give a wonderful Stage 2 welcome to Riham, the moderator, and her panelists as they come up on stage. Have fun.
Hi. Hi, so we're here today to talk about sustainability and about whether technology can bring sustainability forward in times of global crisis like the one we've been living now past few years. And I have a great guest today to speak with me about that. Here we have Katharina Riederer, who is the co-founder and CEO of eco.mio, which is a Berlin-based company, software company that offers alternatives for companies to do business travel, more eco-friendly business travel. We have Christoph Schenek, who manages Microsoft sustainability program, and we have Nick Laforge, who is the managing partner of Planet A Ventures, which is a Berlin-based venture capital fund that partners with European green tech. Welcome here. Thank you. So first, I want to speak with you about what has changed. Nick, for instance, what has changed in the past few years when it comes to climate technology? You have an overview through your company. What has changed in the past few years, and what has changed since February this year?
Thanks a lot. Can you hear me? Yeah, it sounds like it. First of all, it feels a bit like being back to school, like sitting on the bench, waiting for the bus. Thanks a lot for the question. I think a lot has changed. I recently was in a room with a US-based fund manager, and he said something which I found very impactful. He said, what you've been doing in the past years in Europe is all fun and games, but the 600-pound gorilla just woke up. And I find that really insightful because the Inflation Reduction Act by the Biden administration, with almost 400 billion being poured into it, is definitely a sign. And while we all contribute and we all win if we stop climate change, I think we have to be careful within Europe to not miss a ginormous opportunity to remain the pioneers and the forward thinkers when it comes to climate tech.
So we're escaping forward with the current crisis that we're living today.
Sorry?
Are we escaping forward with the current crisis, like with the energy crisis that we're living today? Is it pushing us forward towards more sustainability?
I would say absolutely. And I mean, like we see this, we're at an all-time high for renewable energy. You've probably seen the news. Greece was 100% on renewables a couple of days ago, and we see how this is just being ramped up. The question whether it's enough stands on another piece of paper, but I think there is a lot going on right now, and while it's heavily impacting some industries, the energy industry definitely is winning. And somebody I know quite closely recently said, of course jokingly, but Putin has been our employee of the century, because the rollout that they've experienced since then was just over the top. And maybe to just say one sentence on what has happened over the past years, I think green tech and environmental tech and impact tech, however you want to call it, got out of the niche. And the biggest asset managers in the world have put their mindset onto, okay, this is coming out of the sidetrack of philanthropic capital into, okay, this is something that we can make money off. And my personal opinion is not the one that we need to make money off of it. I think that to put all of this into a capitalistic system is the best chance we have at reaching the necessary speed we need to turn the ship around. And this is why I like this. This is why I think we need this. This is why I think this has the biggest potential of change, because we need to get the existing infrastructure and industry on board.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Chris, what about big players like Microsoft? Have you seen any shift in your clients' demands for more sustainable products?
Yeah, so I think I agree with basically everything you said, especially the last point, that it has become like front and center in all the discussions that I'm having, that my team is having. So we talk to a lot of corporates like DAX 30 or now 40 companies. And it used to be, as you were saying, like, yeah, we have comms and we also have our sustainability department to now integrating sustainability into every aspect that big corporates are doing. So how do we procure? How do we report? How do we create new incentives, maybe also for our buyers, for our operations and so on. So I feel the urgency is clear, and it definitely has been accelerated by what has happened in February, but I think was there before. And honestly, the main driver that I see besides the current energy crisis is actually regulation. So the one term I hear over and over again if I talk to customers, and that's not only big corporates but also smaller players, is CSDR, so Corporate Sustainability Reporting, CSRD, Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is basically bringing non-financial reporting to a totally new level. If you talk to advisors like KPMG, EY, and so on, they will tell you your non-financial data needs to be audit-proof. So if you are in the business of non-financial reporting, bringing it to a new quality, moving from spend-based to activity-based, I think you're in the right spot, because companies are really desperately looking for solutions to actually improve it and bring it to a new quality level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Speaking of solutions, as we just mentioned, your company offers solutions for business travelers. Now, finally, we're getting back to business trips, no more Zoom calls, hopefully, or less at least. And
Teams.
I hope so.
Teams.
And how your company makes this.
Commercial for your company?
Yeah, I wanted to speak with you about making this option. Like, our clients are willing to take the extra minute to look for more alternative solutions, or are they just looking for the cheaper options? Or can we do this balance between taking an eco-friendly solution when it comes to business travel, for instance, or an economic financial decision? How does this balance work out?
Yeah, great question, obviously, and I would like to connect that actually with the question before. So what we see is that companies are active and they are looking for solutions, they are aware of it, and they have the intention to do something. Let's say the majority of the companies, not every company. But I believe we're way too slow here, like we're really like late to the party, and a typical German syndrome is to analyze, think about the strategy, and only then act. We would need to really act now and implement solutions already, even if the strategy is not bulletproof yet. That's my opinion on this part. And yes, we're offering a solution. Hopefully it can also be implemented without having a bulletproof strategy yet. And basically, to answer your question, looking at the trade-off between how much business travel might cost, especially in a crisis where we all look into cost savings. I mean, let's look at startups who are having a lot of layoffs. Luckily, when we look at business travel, we do not need to worry about it too much, because in 90% of the cases, carbon reduction comes along with cost reduction. So we can help in this situation actually on top, like solve two crises or help with two crises at the same point. And why is this? The key insight behind here is that it's both connected to the comfort level. So that's the addressing the second part of your question. When we look at the comfort level, we need to take a step back and really be okay with reducing our comfort on business trips in order to avoid a climate crisis and also help our companies to survive, to reduce cost base if we have to travel. And for this, we need to show as a company that we really appreciate it, and that's basically what we're doing with our product. We know that we have a cost saving that's being created, and we use this cost saving in order to show the business traveler we are doing something on top as your employer because we appreciate what you're doing. We're giving, for example, a donation to a good cause with the savings that you created for us and the carbon reduction that you created for us as a company.
So it's possible, like it can be actually a trade-off when taking a more sustainable decision. What about in the general view? Not just the cost saving, but also the hybrid growth. Usually, venture capitalists are looking for startups that would grow super quickly, become a unicorn, and usually we have the perception that sustainability is slow. We don't get that such quick, accelerated growth with sustainable solutions. But you work with sustainable solution startups. How does that balance work out for startups?
So when we started Planet A, we did that with one North Star metric, which is the planetary boundaries. And right now it's clear we're using 1.7 planets, of which we only have one, and that's the misery in a nutshell. And the planetary boundaries are, of course, more complex than only climate change. It also attributes to extinction in species, million years, and so on, like how much biodiversity are we losing, pollution levels, and so on. And we have to take all of this into account. And what is clear, what must be clear right now to our society as a whole is that the non-sustainable alternative is going to be the more costly. And there are, of course, early adopters and there are laggers, and we hope that the batch of early adopters accelerates a bit. But if you follow that basic principle, if you follow that belief, there is going to be a very clear correlation between the biggest impact drivers, the companies that have the biggest positive impact, and the ones creating the biggest monetary value, if you want. And so I think these are two sides of the same coin that we absolutely have to see. And sustainability starts in our minds, right? We have to overcome the growth mindset at some point. We have to overcome the perspective that everything needs to grow to the moon, or whatever Wall Street bets is about right now. But this is going to take a couple of generations. We obviously are currently trapped in a system where this is not the reality, where like the pure greed is still dominating everything else, and at the same time, the time scale that we're presented with is so dire that we need the biggest growth we can achieve at any point right now in all of these fields. And sustainability is not one industry. You have sustainability in how you produce energy, how you store it, how you get from A to B, how you clothe yourself, how you build houses, and so on. And whatever you're looking for, whatever investment field you're searching for, you can do it in a sustainable way. And this is the mindset change that I think we have to really embrace.
And has this, Chris, like mind shift happen at the big players? Are things easier to shake up, or usually they're not as flexible? Also, compromising on growth for big players are not that easy. How does things work for a big player like Microsoft?
So, I mean, I personally think there are ways how to decouple emissions from growth. And I mean, I speak on behalf of a big tech company, and we, like other hyperscalers, have very ambitious growth have very ambitious growth targets. And I mean, the hyperscaler market is still growing fast, like extremely fast. And also we as an organization here in Germany have and also will deliver. But I think there's definitely ways to decouple, but also to improve. And I think what you said about the mind shift is super important. I think there's still plenty of space for improvement. What I observe is we also have a graduate program, so you have like 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds joining the company, and it's really interesting to see also the difference in thinking. It comes down to simple things like what type of food is served in the cafeteria, how do we travel, and there's really a big difference. So within Microsoft Germany, we have a large sales team, and within sales, there's sort of certain things that people want or wanted, which is like big car, business travel, and so on. But again, this is also changing. And I think besides the Mindshift aspect, what is super important is really also the governance around it. So there's central governance mechanisms you can put into place, like a carbon tax and so on, that work without people actually noticing it. And my observation, also talking to a lot of companies, is that like those central mechanisms and also incentive mechanisms are not really in place yet. So I recently attended a supplier meeting, so we as a supplier, and there was a very interesting discussion between the sustainability team from this customer and the procurement team. And it was basically, how do you integrate sustainability KPIs, whatever that means, into procurement? Because if you incentivize your procurement team on how much money you're saving, you're not most likely get the most sustainable product. And I think that is an area, that is a sort of also topic where I feel we are still at the very beginning. So really making these organizational transformations that are necessary. I think it all has to start somehow with data, but then of course you need to take action. And then other things are required than data. It's much, much bigger and broader.
Can I ask a really quick question about this? So I've been speaking to a couple of tier 1 automotive suppliers, and they say that they see the OEMs request that they can produce completely CO2 neutral in 2030. So the complete top-down push. Do you think that this is something that can work?
So I see this as well. It's downward pressure from the big players. And I feel it's working. You have a lot of smaller companies getting really, really nervous about this request. And it's not only you have to deliver the data, they basically ask you to sign a document and say, I commit myself, I commit the company to be climate neutral until, I don't know, like 2030, 2040, whatsoever. And if this is becoming a key component of your procurement decision, besides price, besides quality, and so on, I think you are not going to have any customers if you don't have a credible commitment, if you don't have a credible data quality to actually deliver on those targets.
And for this you need to have, and for this you need to have the resources also. Like we're talking here about bigger companies, but the further you go down the supply chain, the less resources you actually can commit to doing those analytics and proving them.
Yeah, Chris was talking about data, that we need data as an incentive for us to cut on our CO2 footprint. Your company does this exactly. You show your clients how much they can save, but the big step is what comes afterwards. How much people or clients' behavior change, and do we just need education on how much we're producing CO2, or we need solutions that maybe some of your startups can find solutions for? Do we need more education, and how much people change when they know?
Education, definitely, because I believe, at least we at eco.mio, we're in a bubble, we know a lot, and therefore we assume that everyone knows a lot, and this is definitely not the case. Even like a few months ago, when someone would have asked me, which no one did, but like, how much is actually 1 kilogram CO2? I can tell you like what the unit means, but I cannot tell you what it really means to reduce by 1 kilogram CO2. Is this a lot? Is it not? And how do different measures compare? Like what levers do I have, and how do they compare in their relation, basically in the ratio of the impact? So I think education is definitely today still necessary, hopefully not for too long. Hopefully we can do this fast so that everyone is aware of their actions and their impact therefore. And so when we talk about education, as you say, yes, it's about data, it's about transparency to really show, and in a very simple way, not in a complex way or in a hidden way, like very, very dominantly, if you do this, that means this for your climate impact, and also putting it in a relation again to what kind of budget we actually have as per person. If we talk about per person, per company, that's another topic, but if we talk about per person, if we want to stick to the 1.5 degree target, that means we would technically have 1.5 kilograms CO2 equivalent of a budget per year, and the average German citizen is at 10. This is an insane gap, and I would say in any other economical situation, you would say this is impossible to get to. So we need education to get the awareness for this ratio on the one hand, and at the same time, I think we all need to get like different status symbols. Today, it's about how much do you earn, what car are you driving. This is also changing, but we need to get away from the monetary status, but rather to, hey, I'm cool because I'm green. So my dad, he bought a Smart recently, an e-Smart, and he thinks that he's so cool because he's innovative. This is what we need to push, that green is actually the new status.
Yeah, do you think we're on the track to think like that? We are not driving the latest car, but how green you are? This is the crowd, I think, for that.
I think it's a tricky one. I don't think we're on track right now. I think we will be on track, and I, as many other people, don't have the clarity to really judge when it's dire enough for us to change systemically. Like we see very hopeful signs in like how technology emerges, and just for the clarity, that's of course a tiny piece, a tiny mosaic piece in all of what we need next to changing customer behavior, regulation, the big players adopting existing technology, rollout of this, and so on. And obviously, and there is a lot of scientific proof we're not nearly the speed of change that we need. Will we as humanity survive all of this? Absolutely. But I think we still have it in our hands how high we peak in terms of climate change, and also how much of the other consequences we are willing to bear in terms of biodiversity loss, pollution, and so on.
So we need also solutions to make it easier, and many of the startups you work with are working on those solutions. What is like one solution you're still waiting for to be pitched for you?
Oh, that's a dangerous question to ask. How much time do you all have? So when we look at things, we try to be very systemic about it, and also try to give science a voice. We've been hearing this a lot, that science doesn't have the necessary voice, and we try to disrupt the venture game a bit by giving science a voice. So we have a team of scientists that calculate life cycle assessments, basically very holistic, energetic and materialistic inputs of what are needed to create a certain product, such as the microphone. And then you end up with the entire emission footprint, and you can compare that to the status quo. And impact always has different dimensions, as I said. CO2 is one of them, but there are others. And maybe if I can highlight one solution, and I don't want to dig too deep into it, but it's a company called GA Drilling. GA Drilling has developed a plasma drilling head, and that sounds very abstract, but they are trying to tap into something called supercritical geothermal energy. You might have heard about geothermal. There is ground source heat pumps that can heat up your home, but supercritical geothermal energy is something else, because it's actual electricity that can be produced out of it. And why it's relevant is it's baseload continuous, so it's not weather dependent, such as wind and solar, at the same time completely CO2 free. And we're currently not seeing geothermal energy worldwide, because we're limited by engineering challenges. So we can't, with the existing material that we have from oil and gas, once we reach something called hard rock, so granite or cooled off lava rock, we have like 0.5 meter to 1 meter lasting drilling heads, and then we have to pull out 3 kilometers of steel, which leads to exponentially rising costs. And so they have developed a plasma drilling head, which just sinks through the plate like a hot piece of metal through butter.
It's so interesting. I was at a geothermal conference yesterday talking about all those solutions, and it's so interesting to see the appetite. And that brings us back to the crisis question at the beginning, that speaking about geothermal was something nice to have, too complicated to think about. And now, because we need this energy, everyone is talking about it, big companies are thinking about it. You're nodding. Do you have any think to comment on that?
I mean, I'm nodding because I think you made a super important point. And being like self-critical, especially within tech, we tend to say that, you know, software is super important. And of course it's important, but it's not going to solve a lot of challenges. So you need massive scale of innovation across all sectors, and software can help, but it's not going to solve a lot of the things that you just described. So, and as I was saying before, I think you need those type of innovations, and we as a company, for example, we are working with Climeworks, which is actually direct air capture, super fascinating technology, still very expensive. And that is maybe, to your previous question, another comment I want to make. So where do we stand? I see a lot of big corporates making statements about their climate goals and then other sustainability goals. But there's very little thinking, how do you actually work with the delta of emissions you will still have? I think no one believes that we will have zero emissions in 2030 or 2040, when, you know, national law a bit further down the road then will also oblige us to be climate neutral. And that is, I think, very interesting that companies, some of the companies I talk to, not all of them, do not really think about also the like offsetting carbon removal processes and so on. And every now and then it's really, I have this one project in South America which is about reforestation. And then of course you have to ask the question, is that really your portfolio for carbon removal, or do you have any other ideas? And I think that is a very nascent, fascinating market. If you are in that space, I think, again, it's a great opportunity because companies are desperately looking for solutions, but they don't really have a clue because they are not experts on this. And I think, again, getting back to your point, finding expertise on those specific topics is extremely hard. It's easier for big corporations. But again, like German Mittelstand is also heavily thinking about this, and they simply don't have the resources. So again, probably software and startups can help here, but it's only one part of a much, much bigger solution that is needed.
Katie, we're talking about offsetting. We're talking about that some airlines offer to pay extra few more for the flight to plant a tree, or as an offsetting or compensating for the CO2. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it became clear also on what Chris said, that there's better and worse offsetting. And when it comes to the technical solution, we really need to look, I believe, in the timeline. What can we do now? Software hopefully is quite easy and fast to develop and hopefully also implement. If it's more technical, that might take some years. So that's why my pledge would be, let's really enforce also the software that we can do today. And when it comes to offsetting, this is really the secondary level that we should take. We need to reduce first, and then only the things that we really cannot reduce or avoid, we offset. Because the issue is with offsetting is, it most often has a time lag. So let's say the typical example, to grow a tree takes several years. And we do not have the time, as we heard now. And the second part is, it often happens in a different location. So if you say you do this in South America, we're currently in Europe, so there's not really a balance of where the emission happen and where it's actually captured. But yeah, if you do offsetting, I think Microsoft is a great example. Climeworks is an insanely good solution, but it's expensive. So there's middle ways for companies that cannot afford. But yeah, I would also pledge not to go for just planting trees. There's way more efficient levers to take, and you simply need to be aware that this costs more, and be also happy to apply a higher carbon price than is officially taxed today in the industry.
So we don't have time. We don't have time. Like, we ran out of time here on the panel, but we don't have time also to fight climate change. So we need, like, to sum it up, we need change in culture, we need solutions, and we need technology, and we need the information and education about that.
If I maybe can do one very short call to action. When people ask, what can I do? Stop eating meat or stop flying? It's both. But the most important thing, the biggest asset you have, is your time. So make sure that you work for somebody who takes this seriously. We don't have time, and this is the biggest lever you have. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for joining us
Excellent.
today.
Let's give it up for them. Thank you all very much. In that direction. Excellent. Thank you.